So a lot of times when we're looking at social media, Facebook, your YouTube, your Instagrams and things of that nature, it's all about, representation or presentation. And so a lot of times we see more damaging things than the good things. And so when we look at mental health on the aspect of that, it's how people are receiving those things. So for instance, in my practice, I can openly say out of 50 clients, I have 30 black men, okay? 30 black men that range between the ages of 18 to 55 in my practice. And I hear often, I saw this on social media and it had a negative impact because I was comparing myself to this person, or this person is flaunting this, and I was comparing myself to them. Even I'll go as far as to let everyone know the impact of, and this is pretty much like a negative impact of social media. In November of 2021, a cousin of mine was on live, flashing his money, all right? Flashing his money. I don't want you to know how much money I got. As far as you know, I got $2. My last $2, right? He was flashing his money. Within 24 hours, his best friend killed him. His best friend killed him. Kicked in my aunt's back door and killed him. So we have to watch, it's all about what are we putting out there. Like I said, we see more negative than we see positive. We see more damaging things in media than we see things that's encouraging and lifting people up. We see people wanting to be the next reality star, right? Because they see this person making so much money and they're in these damaging situations with their collective of friends, such as the housewives and things of that nature. But they're not producing anything good to help the next person. A lot of times, and I was sharing this with Camelia when we were having a conversation, I see so often people posting on social media, black men need to go to therapy. Well, who's to say they're not really in therapy? They may not be advertising it for you to know because now everybody just wants to know your business. But like I told you, I got 30. And I have a practice of 50 clients of my own. 10 of those clients are women. So there is representation of men in therapy. But what I've had to come to do over the last several years is almost like this reprogramming or this redirecting, this reframing to instill hope in them and not compare what they see in the world of media, but what do you see within yourself? What do you believe within yourself? Even when we talk about labels, when we look at mental illness, I stand before you someone who is diagnosed with PTSD and diagnosed with major depressive disorder. I go to therapy. And that's important for me to be impactful to the next generation as well. Even as a professor, and I'm going to end with this, when we talk about representation, I teach at UAB in the graduate program for counseling. In that program, for one, if I just look at the professors, there are only 2 black professors, and we're men. And we are a part of the LGBT community. The students, black male students, we only got 3. 3 in the program. This auditorium could be filled, but because we're not flaunting, such and such is having a party or whatever the case may be, this is what we see, and it's good that you're all here, but there should be more people here. There should be more people here, and it's about the representation of it. So we got to keep doing this. I know my time up, so I'm sorry. But we got to keep doing this. Because I could easily throw a party and pack this place out. I could. My friends could. But it's about the representation. So we have to, people pick and choose what they want to be involved with. But this is what we really need more of to get the word out there about our own overall well-being. Okay.
Again, thank you guys so much for having us today. Communication and mental health, right? So serving as a pastor, a lot of people think we talk all the time, but most of the time we talk is on Sunday mornings, and on Wednesdays is when you probably hear us talk the most. A lot of our time is spent listening, and I believe that listening is the most critical part of communication. When you get to the point where you're able to hear people, you don't just listen to them just to formulate a response. You listen, in your communication, it's going to dictate how a person is going to not only respond to you, but how they move forward with their mental health. Most times I talk to people, and I'm talking to couples, I'm talking to parents or dealing with their children, different things that are happening in our communities. There are three pillars to effective communication. And I build my counseling, build my communication with people on these three pillars of effective communication. It's tone, it's timing, and intent. You can have the wrong tone in a communication, and the whole communication goes out of the window. You can have the wrong timing, the right tone, and the whole thing goes out the window. And you got to be careful with the intent of your communication. When you hear a person and yet your intent is to tear the person down with your communication, I think it can lead to a mental health crisis. As our speaker said, we all have mental health, but we have to be careful in our communication not to lead people down a path of having what we call a mental health crisis. We've got to pull them to a place where they don't get to that point. I've learned the years that scripture is true. James 1 verses 19 and 20. Scripture says, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath, because the wrath of man does not create or promote the righteousness of God. And the important thing for us to do in our communication, especially as clergy, is to make sure that we don't have people to the point where, number one, most importantly, they're mad at God. Number two, they're even madder at the person that they came to you to talk about, even if that person is themselves. And then number three, let's try to make sure they're not mad at you when they finish. At the end of the day, I know there are going to be people that are mad at you because sometimes you say to them what they don't necessarily want to hear. And the third piece of this is I still believe, I'm like the Apostle Paul, I come to you knowing nothing but Jesus and him crucified. I still believe the word of God is true that teaches us, according to Mark chapter 16, verse number 18, the last portion of that text, it says, these signs shall follow them who believe. They shall lay hands on the sick and they shall recover. We still believe that the encounter with Jesus is going to ultimately make the difference with regard to mental health crises with people. But as a pastor, I'm never afraid to prescribe a therapist, a counselor. I'm never afraid to prescribe that, because at the end of the day, we don't have all the answers. And if our communication leads people to think we have all the answers, we're going to critically fail people as we move forward with their mental health.
And have faith in their own impact, their result, and how they approach their careers, relationships, and overall quality of life.
Yes, I would have to say yes. Basically, just being personal for myself. I was raised by a single mom living in the government housing project, but she worked hard. I saw her, put in a lot of work, but my dad was not always around. He was a good dad. He was nice. He was a provider. But as back in the day, you say your dad was a rolling stone. He had different things going on that I never knew. So just to give a little transparency about me to kind of give you an idea, until I was 14, I thought I was my dad's only child. I didn't think it was anybody else. So when I graduated elementary school, he disappeared for a few years. The reason he disappeared, he lost his job at the steel industry. If you're originally from Birmingham, you know back in the early 80s, the steel industry took a big hit, and a lot of black men that worked in the steel industry were laid off, and they were laborers. They had no real education. They made money. So where were they going? They had nowhere to go. So he basically disappeared for that while, and I'm thinking, okay, what's going on? So I relied on my mom, my grandmother, my sister, who basically raised me. But I never saw a true essence of what a man was supposed to be in a household. I never saw my grandmother and grandfather who lived together and were married. I never saw them even show any signs of affection. Many of you probably have experienced this where your grandparents slept in separate rooms. And you wonder why. You didn't know it was a reason. You wonder what's going on with that. You think that's the norm. So for me, I didn't really have a true essence of male female relationships in a loving way, even though I was loved as a child. So those things have affected me going throughout life, high school, college, and so forth. So for me, what happened is that when I went off to college and came back after a year, I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to do with myself? I'm a young black man working a part-time midnight shift job, living with my mom. No direction, didn't know what was going on, living in the government housing project. Never was in any kind of trouble. Anybody knows me, even George, we went to high school together, knows I wasn't one of those that was running the streets and doing stuff, but a lot of our friends were doing a lot of illegal things that I could have easily gotten caught up with, but I didn't. So for me, I decided to join the Air National Guard, to leave, to try and learn manhood, do something on my own without my friends, without my parents, my sister, or anybody, just to take a leap and did. And I joined during Desert Shield. Everybody's wondering why. I said, because I'm trying to find my direction, because I did not see those things growing up. I saw hard work, but I did not see what a man is supposed to do and how I'm supposed to be. And I had to learn that on my own. And to be transparent, until last year, even though I had different things to happen, I started going to a therapist. Because it used to be, people used to say, if you go to a therapist, something's wrong with you. Even in the military, they'll say, if you go seek help, you're labeled. You can have all kinds of trauma going on, but then basically they tell you to keep quiet because they'll put you out, whatever. So we kept a lot of things to ourselves. So when I decided to get therapy, I'm telling people, I even told my son, who's here, my youngest son. He's in the military. When I told him, he was like, that's good. For me, that touched me, that my son saw that in me. But going to therapy gave me so much transparency going all the way back to childhood, because she asked, where do you want to start? I went to her for something different, and I said, you know what? Let's start from the beginning. I want to unpack all of this. I'm 53. I want to unpack all of this. There's a lot that has happened from childhood, what I did not see, and so forth. So I didn't see it with my mom because she didn't just bring people around, but I never saw her interact with anybody. Even when my dad came over, they didn't really interact. They were like just friends. If I needed something, he provided, but they did not interact. I never saw them hug. I never saw them kiss. I never saw them do anything. So for me, I'm thinking that's the norm. You go through life, I'm thinking all this is the norm. But until I got with my therapist and we started talking about things and realizing that those experiences in my childhood, my upbringing, my career have been traumatic for me, I never looked at it as trauma. I looked at it as just some life experiences. But it has hindered me in a lot of my relationships, my career, even when it comes to taking care of my kids, things I did not do, things I thought were right but weren't, things I could have done different. So everything that I've experienced, yes, it has been traumatic, but it was even deeper because obviously I'm a black man as well. So I had to face those things in life just as being black, as we talked about the marginalization and everything. So to me, yes. So we need to start early with our kids, talking to them, being more involved with them. And that's kind of like what I do now with my great nephew who's 8. Dad is not in his life. My great niece, who's a student here at Ramsay, her father was killed when she was 2. So I come from a family I have no aunts and uncles on my mom's side. My grandmother was an only child. My mom was an only child. So I didn't have an extension of anybody to reach out to help me or a mentor or someone to look up to. So now it's time for me to try and do that, to give back and be a positive role model in society as well as for my own family and the next generation.
I'll kind of take some of that. So my life is kind of, I wouldn't say it's complicated, but it's many levels. I pastor full time. I work full time husband, of course, with 2 girls. My girls are 27 and 20, and so my relationship with my wife, my marriage is my primary is extremely important to me. We'll be married 30 years in June. And with that, I started pastoring after we were married 18 years. And so we went from just being me and her and the girls to me, her, the girls, and all these other people that were kind of pulling on you. And so it takes, I think one of the things it takes communication. We talked about that. It takes communication in order to have that balance. But I think also, too, it takes realistic expectations. What are the realistic expectations that we have? And sometimes we'll set unrealistic expectations that throws us completely out of balance because we give a laundry list of things that we expect from our spouse. But the truth of the matter is, you can't be your spouse's everything. You know, that sounds good. This is my everything. She's my everything. But the truth of the matter, if God is not the primary focus, then it's all going to fall apart in most cases anyway. And so I think balancing that starts with communication, setting realistic expectations, and just know that the primary focus is your walk with Christ, your marriage relationship. In our case, and I think once we got to the place where we really did that, I wouldn't necessarily say it made life easier, but it helped us kind of continue to navigate this path that God has us on in this part of our lives.
short of maybe toxic waste, right?
Yeah, I'll take that. That's a great question. So, I think actually being able to communicate with your spouse or a woman, as a man, you have to come to a place of transparency. We wear so much bravado and egotistical thinking and things like that. So, what helps communication? And I've been divorced twice, right? So many of those things were me again not having the direction and kind of painting my own picture. So in this phase of my life, I've learned to do more communicating, right? Here's my sore spots. Here are the places where I am vulnerable, right? As men, we're always taught. I think I saw something on the TV. It didn't hurt. Stop crying. Stop doing all of that, right? So when men learn to embrace their feelings, that's what we have to do. We have to embrace our feelings, learn how to express ourselves, and our women, they want to hear us. You guys want to hear what hurts us, what's going on with us. When we're able to do that more effectively, I think if we bridge the gap of communication and it evens out and levels out the playing field between man and woman.
I'm going to also add to what George said. To me, I think obviously growing up, men, we were basically taught not to cry or express what's wrong with us. And but now the way I know I feel, and I'm pretty sure several men here do, if I express my feelings to you, don't emasculate me. Just listen. If I cry, if I'm emotional, if I pull back, does not mean that it's something with you. People look at me and say you're retired, but I work more now retired than I did when I was in the military. Because then I went to a job and sat at a desk all day. Now I'm in the streets, running around, showing homes, trying to communicate with different people, spending time with loved ones, coaching, trying to be something for everybody. But a lot of times I deplete myself. And a lot of times my capacity is so heavy that I run low. So it gets back to just, if a man decides to me to be comfortable enough to open up, that's already a wall that's already hard for us because that's been building for years. So, like I said earlier, with the therapy, that has opened my eyes up to trying to just communicate more. Am I going to be great at it? No. But we have to work together with that and juggle, when it comes to career and everything. Because at the end of the day, a lot of men, I'm not one of those that sits around. I'm not a lazy person. I like to work. I like to be active. I like to give back. I always try and please everybody. So when you do need something, you should be able to just reach out to someone and just say, hey, this is what I need. I'm tired. I just need just a rest or whatever the situation is. But it obviously goes both ways. And it gets back to, like I said, this, you don't want to have it to be toxic communication. You want to get to a point where you can communicate better, and I know that I've had issues with that before communicating, but you're never too old to learn something and to be better at whatever it is you aspire to do.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming out, gentlemen. My name is John Vereen. My question has to deal with what can you tell us today to help us understand or how to really articulate how we're feeling, and so that we can more so just stand up and be what we want, and also be able to communicate what we want, what we need in the moment, so that to another person, so that things don't get out of control, that they won't get more frustrated, that literally empowers us to do more of mindset management in the moment.
Are you able to hear me now? Okay. And your question is how, or some things that you could do to help you to better articulate what it is that you're feeling. And I think, some things that I'll have clients is to practice is first being able to articulate that to yourself. I like the analogy you gave about being able to talk to that person that's there in the mirror and being able to look at that person in the mirror and express what it is that you feel right there in that moment. Because if you can't identify yourself, you can't express it to anyone else. Another activity that I'll give men, we'll sit down and I'll just give them a list of emotions. And let's talk about those emotions, what it feels like. More importantly, what are the thoughts behind that to help you understand the thoughts behind what you're feeling? I know you had mentioned certain exercises, and one of the ones that she mentioned was journaling. And no one really raised their hand for that one, but that is so very crucial because we can have so many things bouncing around in our head that the issue that we dealt with yesterday is bouncing against the issue that we dealt with a year ago, and the emotions from that are kind of covering this. And so the person that has nothing to do with what we're feeling right now, they catch it for everything that happened from 1977 up to now. But if we're able to get that out, if we're not talking it out, be able to write it out. I think writing brings that clarity that we need in being able to identify what it is that I feel particularly about a certain situation. So standing in front of that mirror, talking to you and acknowledging and saying, hear yourself saying, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm depressed. Because I think so many times the reason that we don't articulate what we feel is because we hadn't been taught how to articulate what we feel. You know, little girls come together and they talk about everything that what's going on, and he did this and I feel that. And men, we just suck it up. The analogy that I use, and a lot of us have played sports, and you have either, coach asks, are you hurt? Or are you injured? If you're injured, you can't play. But if you're hurt, you need to suck it up. But we also hear in the background our friends talking about, oh, you hurt. Your feelings hurt. You acting like a little girl. So I can't express that I'm hurt. I need to suck it up and move on. But I can express anger. I can go out there on the court. I can go out there on the field and release that aggression. And so a lot of things that we're feeling comes out in that way because we hadn't learned how to identify and express what it is that we truly feel. So being able to practice that with yourself initially in that mirror, in that journal, in therapy. Talk to a professional who can help you to process that and identify and express what it is that you're feeling.
Hi, my name is Curtis, and thank you guys for showing up today. One question that came up was, there's a lot of discussion about how men can share and be transparent. Kind of share some ideas or thoughts or suggestions on how men can share how they feel without the information being weaponized, right? Because a lot of things that happen is you can share and be open, but if you're cannibalized on the back end in arguments and therapy, that kind of disincents you from going forward and doing that again. And secondly, as a second part, if you could share some support groups, phone numbers, group organizations that men in the audience could connect with, right, to continue their growth in this area.
Well, I can speak to at least the first part of that. I think what's helpful is to find those safe spaces that you share with other folks that we already know is a safe space, but we may or may not want to make it uncomfortable, be it the barbershop, the brothers you work out with. We're very good as Black men we all do it, man. You good? You good? Yeah, I'm good. How truthful is that? I've gotten to the habit of, man, are you good? I ask it twice, but then I always end with, hey, man, it's all right to be not all right. Sometimes that opens up a window that brother may or may not thought that he could open up with me, to say that. So I'm not sure what those spaces may be for you. I want to shout out Dr. Jordan, Reverend Jordan. He has an awesome Wednesday men's Bible study where, without a doubt, we definitely share scripture and all that, but then we also have that space to just be men and leave it all out there without it being weaponized, because some of us know each other. Most of us in that room don't know each other, but we all have that common cause of, man, I'm here to get better. I'm here to learn more about Christ, or whatever the case may be. But I'm not sure what those safe spaces are. And if there isn't a safe space, man, come roll with me, man. We can. I work out, twice a week. We'll figure it out. That's for anybody here. If you're ever in Stockton neighborhood in Trustville, we run every morning. Come on. But that's what I got for the first part.
I'll take that second part. Brother, let's talk. If you have your phone, go to Facebook, Instagram, Brother, let's talk. And you can see what we're doing in the community. Since 2017, we've been hosting barbershop talks where men can come, and we do it on the last Sunday of each month. Men come together. It's not therapy, but we come together and just talk about a lot of those issues that men deal with. But we have licensed mental health professionals facilitating the conversation. And if someone identified that they need to further the conversation, they want to find a resource, we have providers that will give free therapy, because we know that finances is often a barricade into therapy. And so we want to create an environment not only where they can come in and feel safe about opening up and talking about whatever it is that they're going through, but know that they have resources if they need to continue it. So we do that once a month, and we also host community events where it's men and women, like the one we had last night where DeAndre Whitfield spoke. And it's an opportunity for women to hear how men feeling, and for women to hear how the man is feeling as well, but then to better the relationship, better their communication. So if you would, go to Brother Let's Talk, either Facebook or Instagram or brotherletstalk.com, and you can see what we have coming up.
Thank you all for your input. And this week, we are going to close out our panel. Before we do that, I do want to mention that we did have the amazing DeAndre Whitfield, of course, our guest speaker today. But unfortunately, I should say unfortunately, because it's a beautiful thing as and to yield to your family needs. And he did have family needs that he needed to take care of. So thank him for his essence and his presence. I just want to participate with Black men of ours. However, do we call and really do you today? Thank you very much for the opportunity. Before we completely close out the panel, I'd like to ask each panelist to take a minute to give parting words regarding mental health. Whether it was the individual life.
Yeah. So I will definitely say, just in part, and take care of yourself, making sure that the people that are in your life are healthy people for you. Making sure you're surrounding yourself around positive people that's going to encourage you, people that's going to lift you up, people that's going to check in with you and ask how you're doing. And I'm not saying you got to talk to the people every day, but I'm just going to kind of shed a little spotlight on three of my friends over here. Those three ladies, we've been friends collectively over 20 years probably, but we check in, one of which is a licensed therapist, and we check in with each other. So it's just important to have that camaraderie with each other, to check in. Sometimes, you may have to look at each other. My best friend from Atlanta came here. She had to put a face on me. But those types of things we need. So making sure you have that healthy support system. Where's Keisha? I've known Keisha for a very long time, and we check in with each other. So having that healthy camaraderie where people just really support you, check in with you, see how you're doing, and really help to, push the wheel forward. And it's okay to be honest with yourself. It is okay to be honest about how you're feeling, and, make sure you're taking that space to be honest with yourself. Okay.
That's good stuff. I think kind of like what I mentioned earlier, it's okay to not be okay. I think most of us men of a certain age, we've been conditioned to always have this tough face, like we don't go through anything. we're all human. We go through things. But I say as Black men, sometimes our pride can stifle our potential. Being able just to acknowledge that you have a problem, to acknowledge that you just need a sounding board is extremely helpful for your mental health.
I got a nugget, I guess, for everyone in here. There's a quote, I think Norman Vincent Peale said, when you change your thinking, you change your world. When you change your perspective about something, you're going to change how you react, how you respond. Be honest. How many of you here feel that some people sometimes do and say things that just piss you off? They may do something, raise your hand. Some folks may sometimes do something and say something that make you angry. And that's the furthest thing from the truth. Because if that's the case, we would both get angry about the same thing. When we see something, we will both be upset about it. How is it that we can both go through the same thing? You may not be upset about it. I'm like, that's the worst thing in the world. It's what I think about that situation. Look at self first. Look at self. Why do I feel this way about this particular thing? Because it's the way I'm thinking about it. We often want to look at someone else and say, if you stop doing what you're saying, if you stop doing what you're doing, if you don't say what you're saying, then I won't be upset. So that means I'm waiting on you to change who you are so I can feel better. That ain't gonna happen. I got to change me. I got to look at self and see how I'm responding to this situation. Change your thinking and you'll change your world.
Yep, I'll add to that. I think in my case, I've established a group of strong accountability partners, right? Strong men that I trust with my secrets, with things that I want to be transparent about. Not just friends that will be in my amen corner, but somebody that will tell me, you're out your mind, right? You need to rethink that posture, and you need to rethink how you're going about your life and about the situation. So that's the biggest thing that I would suggest to most men. You have to have strong accountability partners. Anybody always agreeing with you, they're probably not for you in the right way. So that's my point.
My parting, I guess, comment would be is don't be afraid to ask for help, regardless. And as George said, he has a circle. For me, the older I've gotten, my circle of friends has gotten smaller. My true friends have gotten smaller. But I do find myself a lot of times talking to my son. We talk about a lot of things because I know that it's not going to be a judgment. But then at the same token, I allow him to be transparent with me without me feeling attacked. Because just because I'm his father doesn't mean that I can't learn from him. Because our kids are smarter than a lot of times than we think they are. And sometimes it's just good just to get a different perspective from someone. He's a young man, so I get a different perspective from him because he's in a different age group. But it's more about just being honest with yourself and gaining control of who you are. So for me, when I was in the military, one little thing is my supervisor, my commander, one time, I used to give my supervisor a lot of issues. It was just menial stuff. But then he called me in his office one day and said, sit down. He said, I'm not chewing you out. He said, the way that you are right now is not good. He said, you can't change everything because you're not in control. When you get in control, you can change things. So to me, I have to learn now to control myself, which means learning myself. And then once I learn who I am deep, then I can then try and make change, because until then, if I don't know who I am, how can I make change in anybody else? Because I'm still aimlessly out here, lost. So with that being said, I just say, don't be afraid to talk. Don't be afraid to just ask somebody if they need something, or allow them to help you. Because I don't like asking for help. Anybody knows me. I don't like asking for help. And that's just because of the way my life has been. But I know that there are people that will help me without question. So that's my parting thought.
Again, thank you guys so much for having us today. This has been so enlightening. My parting thought is, I think we've heard this in a resounding way from the stage. It's okay not to be okay. We've been taught for so long that we've got to be strong. You can't cry, you can't have emotions, but it's okay to not be okay all the time. I want to charge us to change the way we think. We learn that as a man thinketh within himself, so he'll become. And a lot of times we're suffocating ourselves with our thoughts because we're not getting our thoughts out. We don't have the right people that we're talking to. We don't have people that are taking time to encourage us, but also we don't have people that are telling us the truth. And sometimes when we don't accept the truth as to who we are and where we are, we'll never get better. And I believe times like this and settings like this, these guys were at Jacksonville State with me. And that's a whole nother story within itself. We don't even have time to, we don't have time. But it's important, guys, that we take time to learn how to talk about these things. And the better we get at talking about this and the more we can change the way we think about ourselves, I think the better off we'll be. We've got to be stronger than we've ever been before, but yet at the same time, we've got to be okay with being at our weakest point. Because when we're at our weakest point is when the greatest amount of strength can come. So that's my parting thought. And I just pray everybody, our minds are better. Our mental health is better, and we understand that it's okay not to always be okay, but find the right people to spend time with and change the way we think about ourselves.
Clearly, I have the most dubious seat on this panel because I'm the last one standing between you and lunch. So let me be quick. One thing I'll say is go to the doctor. You know, one of the reasons that Black people, especially Black men, we age in a difficult way and we die early is because there's no early detection. So no matter what it is, we need to detect it early, prostate cancer, whatever the case may be. About 6 years ago, I went to my primary care physician, and then I got a call a few days later, and he said, "Hey, you have a suspicious mass on your kidney." A week later, I had a kidney removed. No symptoms, no sickness, no nothing. But because I had a routine of going to the doctor every January around my birthday, it was detected early. The other thing I would say is go to seek out a therapist. I've heard that several times up here. It's okay to go to a therapist, just like you go to your primary care physician when you're not sick. It's okay to go to a mental health therapist just for a checkup and just for a check-in. Being in the healthcare system, we know that many of our frequent flyers to the ER, many of those avoidable hospitalizations, the root cause is some mental health issue. And so as an industry, we're practicing what we call mental health parity. And that is, for your insurance company, why have 2,000 primary care providers in the network, 600 cardiologists in the network, but then you only have, 100 mental health providers in the network. We need to bring that number up. And so that people can have the access and the availability they need to mental health. So two parting things I would say, go to your medical doctor and also go seek out a therapist. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for your time, your attention. Gentlemen, he's here. I specifically want to thank you.
I'm gonna come this way this time. I know how much you like. That's funny.
Brings me extreme pleasure. She has no idea. This is a boss lady moment. And she has no idea that we're kind of off program. She don't like that, but your girlfriends gave me permission. I have something amazing for you, and so well deserved. Now, I know a lot of you do not know Camellia. Some of you do. She does not like moments like this because she's very humble, but she's also very deserving. With that being said, look at that face. That's funny. Dear attendees of the Black Men's Mental Health Conference, on behalf of the City of Birmingham, it is an honor to extend a warm welcome to each and every one of you attending the Black Men's Mental Health Conference. The significance of this conference cannot be overstated. It stands as a rallying point for our community to address a crucial issue: the mental well-being of African American men. Research and clinical data have highlighted the unique and often complex nature of mental health within this demographic. It is necessary for us to confront make this conference a resounding success and a catalyst for positive change in our community. Warmest regards, Randall L. Woodfin, Mayor of the City of Birmingham.
Awesome. Awesome.
I will now yield to.
Thank you so much. It's so interesting because I don't do this to seek accolades by no means. So I'm grateful to Mayor Woodfin and the City of Birmingham for that acknowledgement. I just want to say thank you to every last one of these amazing kings that sit on the stage. Just for you to be here, to be transparent, to be open, to have this exchange of dialogue is unmatched. I wish I had this growing up. I wish my father could have witnessed this and been in the audience and gave his thoughts a second chance. So because of you being present, you give others permission to be free. So I thank you. I also want to thank Ramsay High School Assistant Principal Micah Kemp. I'm not sure where he is. There he is. The administrative team, they have been so helpful. The young men that greeted you and checked you in, they are with the Manhood Monday initiative. I want to make sure I don't get that wrong. In all but so many words, where we take our young men, we bridge them from boys to men. So thank you to those young men that assisted. My family, my friends, all of you guests, I really appreciate you. I thank you for everything that you've done. Thank you for being here. I want to say, and I always say, the first thing you see when you wake up in the mirror in the morning, if you look in the mirror, is you give yourself permission to make a choice. And I like to say, don't let life make the choice for you, right? So make that choice yourself. Within the 72 hours where I told my father I loved him, I never thought that I would be telling him I miss him. And so as I do these conferences and I go from state to state, I recognize out of all my many years of living, because I'm only 22, that I never asked my father, was he okay? Ever. Because I thought he was okay. Because women are taught to think that men are okay. And as I stand here before you as a woman, I know that men are not always okay. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to have moments. It's okay to have issues. Every situation isn't a mental health crisis. It doesn't mean that you've lost your mind. I know when we were growing up, I'm sure here in the African American community, we can attest to, if someone was a little off and had some experiences growing up, we immediately shoot them in our upbringing. And when you ignore issues of such, for men, they become an explosion like my father. I didn't hear him cry like a baby until 72 hours within his passing. So I take this journey to make sure that no other man loses hope, no other man loses sight that it's okay to not be okay. So I challenge you all, both men and women, to make sure you check on each other. It's okay to pick up the phone and say, are you okay? But it's better to get in the presence of another. And I can look at Mr. Dixon and say, are you okay? And he says,
Yeah.
but I can look at him and tell that that's true. Validation is important. It's easy to say I'm okay, but behind closed doors and on the phone, you're really suffering in silence. So I challenge each of you to tell someone else about these conferences. The same way we can pack out Beyonce's concerts, we can pack out a conference for Celebrate Mental Health. So I thank you. I cherish you. I appreciate you. And I'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Oh, but before I say that, I do have something for every last one of my panelists. Miss McAlpine, Keisha, I want to say thank you to her because our presence here in Birmingham is specifically geared towards her assistance, her help, her phone calls, and her unwavering support and belief in what it is I do. Because you can create anything. It depends on if you have people that believe in you to carry it forward. I can do anything by myself. I can do a lot with others. So I thank you. I appreciate you. And I just thank you again from the bottom of my heart for being here. Thank you so much. I'm not sure where Vassir went, but that pretty much closes out our day. I'm not sure if there's any refreshments left in the back. I do have something for each and every last one of my panelists when you exit from the back. So again, I thank you. Thanks so much.